All right, buckle up, bubbies. You might want to, smoke a few, like 5 or 10 pipefuls of tobacco before you sit down to listen to me read this, because this is, looking back on it, this is really confusing. It is so bloated, so ponderous, so stinking confusing with its language that I put the link to like the paper with the footnotes, references, bibliography and things in the description. Anyway, without further ado, the adverse cancerous effects of addictively glutting on cigarettes are proverbial in fame. The statistics, such popular celebrities, that would be exceedingly hard to find anyone unaware of the correlation of lung cancer and smoking. But I protest, dear extraterrestrials, that you should not judge all of humanity by Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Genghis Khan, and the Caesars. In fact, I posit that one might even find a difference between the lungs of someone like
Bond. James Bond,
who, according to Ian Fleming, smoked 60 to 70 cigarettes daily, and someone who occasionally, or even regularly, eases into a chair with a quiet pipe or bitter cigar.
Rather than every cigar vacuuming away a decade of your life, disciplined tobacco usage may correlate under the correct circumstances to increased life expectancy. For example, do not put a shotgun in your mouth to test whether your brain is a good substitute for confetti. Yeah, that's the wrong circumstance. Not gonna have an increased life expectancy if you kill yourself. Anyway, back to the paper. The injustice of this inversion can be most easily attributed to the following suspects: the nootropical stimulation, the circumstances surrounding the typical smoke, and the Brotherhood of the leaf. Despite the moaning of the hyper-trustworthy American government, which has been warring against tobacco since at least World War I, I'm indeed claiming that tobacco may have some virtues, unlike many evangelical impressions of it. Certainly, its virtue is not so excellently engendering physical bodily health. But alcohol would be damned under the same indictment and verdict. To make a comparison that will not boost tobacco in many of the same evangelicals' minds. Ethanol is a poison almost as potent as the anti-tobacco and pro-masking propaganda that the coprophagous government, and that, dear viewer, means poop-eating coprophagous government, has been slipping in our drinks. That's the end of that. Man is a union of many components. The exclusion of any typically leading to death. It is a well-documented fact that a body composition with either an excessive surplus or deficit in fat affects the function and health of the mind, which will in turn affect the pessimistic turn of the soul. The Bible also seems under the impression that fasting has some sort of spiritual efficacy, but what would those lads know? All this is to preface some comments that might otherwise seem rather radical and silly if I didn't have both science and the Holy Spirit of the eternal sovereign God glaring in affirmation over my shoulder. Smoking tobacco releases nicotine into the physical anatomy, but its effect seeps into all the other bits as well. Nicotine is a nootropic and an appetite suppressant, in addition to its more famous quality being addictive. So, a nootropic is defined as designating or characteristic of a group of drugs considered to improve cognitive functioning. One of the cognitive functions enhanced by nicotine is concentration, which is fine to read about, but a subtly sublime and extraordinary thing to experience. Alcohol, that poster boy substance for those under Christian freedom, also has an effect on the mind as well, but one that inclines towards sin. Wine is a mocker, strong drink is a brawler, and whoever is led astray by it is not wise. Proverbs 21, NKJV. And do not be drunk with wine, in which is dissipation, but be filled with the Spirit. Ephesians 5:18. Wine, beer, and liquor in general dulls the mind. Senses, judgment, and reflexes, all to such an extent that to be perfect in a state of drunkenness would send you and your bloodshot sin to hell. But Christians are still allowed, encouraged, and even commanded by their Lord to use this mind-addling poison.
Oh, I could feel it.
In moderation for theology, celebration, and for their stomach's sake. 1 Timothy 5:23, among others. Alcohol, a dangerous aphrodisiac and mocker, a sinister intoxicant and brawler, is a staple, a necessity, a sacrament of our faith. It has its place. Does tobacco?
The concentration I experience during pipe smoking is not some mythical or medical, unutterable phenomena, but rather a rustic comfort. A muffling blanket tossed over my ordinary noisy clamor of incessant thoughts, cannibalizing each other in a hunger game for mental priority, and a sudden anchoring in the present, an immense blessing.
Peace, not surpassing understanding, but sublime. A wellspring brimming of peace is a recurrent sensation. Sitting on a dock with two friends in a balmy summery night, soaking in the dark and night chirpings, discussing spousal prospects with housemates round a fire, sitting shirtless and sultry
What's this, you fuck?
on my doorstep with my roommate on the evening of my birthday, listening to music outside Bootsers. For someone with a, hopefully not clinically, hyperactive brain, it is a tremendous source of gratitude to, for an evening, cut out the regrets of the past, tangents on the present, anxieties of the future, and focus all my ponderance into the people and topics present. What, rudely interrupt you, does this have to do with life expectancy? Well, as Dwayne Noel of the
Dry Creek Wrangler School
YouTube channel, which is phenomenal, so aptly correlates, mental stress is the greatest determinant of life expectancy. So when one cannot, let me say that again. So when one can find not only the time, but the ability to sit and savor a smoke, when the frail curtain of self-inflicted immediacy of all your issues crumples in favor of the broad contemplative visions allowed by a cigar or a pipe. Stress, that great slayer of men, dissipates with every huff and puff. Congratulations, have some more life expectancy. Leaving the nootropical benefits and circumstances of smoking, we proceed to the endodragon of our paper. The Brotherhood of the Leaf, deftly hinted at in some above particulates. Does it sound corny? Sure. It even tastes corny if you're a proponent of corncob pipes. Awkward silence, eh? Regardless, the Brotherhood of the Leaf is a real component of the allure of smoking. Consequent to entry into smoking, it qualifies as a crowning virtue of the pastime and unintuitively a vitamin. That's what the paper says, so whatever. I guess that's what we're going with. The Brotherhood of the Leaf is not just the ability for any avid tobacco enthusiast to converse on the value of Laetiquillas versus English blends, church wardens versus calabash, Meerschaum versus Briar, Keystone versus paper filters, cigars versus pipes, and every other possible difference in resource, technique, and circumstance. It is not just the affinity of a shared hobby. It is the similitude of mind and pace of life that smoking as a hobby indicates, especially pipe smoking with its peculiar ritual and care that a pipe demands, as well as the unique bond that can be built by enjoying a smoke and conversation. A connection built over that shared topic through that shared practice. Alcohol can, in deeper circles of savants, have a similar community, but any sodded college student can bong a fifth without an attendant appreciation of the centuries of tradition being invoked in communion with the same beloved habit of drinking. This awareness has a definite presence in smoking, though. See, giants like J.R.R. Tolkien, Winston Churchill, and now even Andrew Tate have a voice in the continual conversation of smoking. If you're blind to the positive life effects for a college-age male, at least, fostering that level and flavor of connection with men like Chocolate Knox, Toby Sumter, Matt Gray, at least for people in Moscow, would give you, allow me, the calm wisdom bombs they would drop on your head and the affection they would inculcate for you is an invaluable resource that, if it doesn't lengthen, will certainly improve the quality of your spiritual, mental, physical, vocational, financial, social, and marital life.
Now that I've warmed and stretched your ligaments, it's finally time to rip your arm off at the shoulder. Let's go talk to the United States 1964 Surgeon General Advisory Committee on Smoking and Health. They say death rates are about the same as those of non-smokers for men smoking less than 5 cigars daily. Huh? Death rates for current pipe smokers were little, if at all, higher than those of non-smokers, even with men smoking 10 or more pipefuls a day, and with men who had smoked pipes for over 30 years. On page 92, those dirty gravel munchers. On page 92 of the study, generally the pipe smokers were found to outlive the pungid non-smoking prudes by 2 years. Pungid means apish, so I'm insulting. If not for word count, I would block quote all 386 pages of this study, because it's like, pipe smoking cool. That's not in the paper. An experienced pipe smoker may look over the warm embers of his pipe and criticize me for stating the obvious, but the average normie is undoubtedly unaware of the finer pleasures indulged by smokers. A content life lasts longer and is relished longer, unlike many joyless and peaceless souls in America right now. Tobacco is a blessing coming down from the Father of Lights, and under proper use is one that both harvests gratitude and fertilizes the garden. Well, there we go. That's my little ditty. I use that word a lot, don't I? Maybe not as much as freaking. My last video was the freaking freak video of freaking freakers. That freaks. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed my little video essay here. This I wrote about a year ago now, so it was kind of interesting looking back on how obtusely I could write and what my current thoughts were then on tobacco and pipe smoking. I hope you found some joy or peace in watching this and seeing what kind of weird little framed up shots me and my brother could do. And for those of you lazy viewers who haven't seen this Easter egg yet and didn't notice that it was in the video, I have 2 giant holes in this saw. Actually, just one in this one. Well, let's see about this one. 2, I think. Okay. Yeah, 2.
I guessed the wrong foot. I guess that would have killed me in a battle of the wits with Vizzini. Anyway, before we get mauled by some Idaho bears, we're gonna head out of here. Au revoir. It is very late, as in it's like 6 o'clock. Time for us to go to bed.